All right, welcome to the Unapologetic Chauvinist. Excuse me. I was planning to touch this issue of blackface and sexual assault in Virginia. And then I decided against it, but then I came across this video that was posted by CNN 3 days ago. And then it made me say, I have to do a video about this. So here we are about 2 minutes into the clip. It's a 10-minute clip. I want to look at some of the things that are said by there's a congresswoman on here, and then I think the other two are just political pundits. But let's analyze what they've said.
Concerned, Senator Turner, about the image of impeachment proceedings against an African-American lieutenant governor, while the attorney general and the governor, who have both admitted dressing up in blackface, escape any consequences?
Very concerned, Jake. I was going to say, I hope that the legislature starts impeachment for all three of these folks. You know what?
Right away, let me stop her right there. Impeach them for what exactly? So again, so far as I understand, unless there's been new information that's come out that I'm not familiar with, the lieutenant governor, he's accused of sexual assault. He hasn't been proven guilty in a court of law, so impeach him for what exactly? As far as the attorney general and the governor for wearing blackface, I'm not sure that's an impeachable offense. Is it immoral? Maybe some could argue that. Was it incredibly stupid to do? Yeah, definitely, probably incredibly stupid. But is it an impeachable offense? And then thinking about how long ago it was, and I guess people say, well, it's the 80s, we should have been past that type of behavior. Yes and no. Even in black communities, we make fun of white folks, right or wrong. You can disagree with that. You can say, well, we do it in a different connotation, different context, whatever. Making fun of a different group of people because of race or culture is just like, in my mind and opinion, wearing blackface. Does it make it okay? No. But the point is, we're talking about hypocrisy. And oftentimes when we're talking about liberal Democrats, we're talking about hypocritical stances on positions. If I started talking and making my voice like the sound of a white person, other black people would find it hilarious. They would laugh. So who's to say that white people are any different? Wearing blackface might be funny to them. We may not like it. Again, just like a white person wouldn't like us making fun of them. It doesn't make a difference. Yes, it might be insensitive, but is it a crime? That's the difference. Like, is it a crime? Because we're talking about impeachment. Okay, we're talking about did these folks commit a crime? And again, just to retouch on the lieutenant governor and the alleged sexual assault, until he's proven guilty, I don't think we should jump to rash decisions. But again, we're in the era of the Me Too movement, so he doesn't get to be heard before a trial. He doesn't get to have a trial. He doesn't get to state his position. He doesn't get to defend himself without losing his position because of this culture of Me Too. Let's continue.
What a hell of a way to start off Black History Month. Totally lost.
Right.
And, I'm Black 365, but let's just say.
And just briefly, I like to say I'm glad she's Black 365, being that she's interested in Black history 365 days a year. I am too, in this association with American history, as we call it. And we shouldn't regulate it to 1 month. That's my position. That's why I'm actually anti-Black History Month, because it limits people's thinking about Black contribution to this nation to February.
Black History Month is in February. We started off with this. We're 400 years from 1619 to 2019. The first 20 Africans brought from Angola, they didn't sign up and jump on the boat or the ship themselves, brought over to this country, to Jamestown, Virginia, as slaves. My message to non-Black people: don't wear a black face. Look at the rainbow mosaic of the black faces in this country.
What's the big deal?
Those are the only black faces you should be talking about. But Jake, you hit the nail on the head. The hypocrisy in terms of this governor thinking, he even weighed in on whether or not Lieutenant Governor Fairfax should go. All three of them need to go. And it is not a distraction to talk about racism in this country, because it is in the DNA of this country. It's the first thing that this country was founded on. Racism.
Let me stop her there. Racism was not the first thing this country was founded on. That's a complete and blatant lie, and she should be ashamed of herself for even suggesting such a thing. If you look at the history of this nation, the honest truth is the individuals who first came here were individuals who were escaping religious persecution from the Church of England, and that persecution came out of the Church of Rome. So let's clear this up. England separated from the Church of Rome, establishing its own church, claiming to give religious liberty. And what happened was they began to persecute their own people who disagreed with them. And so some of those folks came over here. Those are some of the first people who came over here. What you often don't hear black people talk about is how some of the black folks who were brought over here from Africa were baptized. Because originally you couldn't be a slave if you were a Christian. So they would baptize them and give them Christian names. Now, was it okay to forcefully move people and baptize them? Were they baptized against their will? I would have to do a little bit more research on that. That's another issue. But to say that this country was founded on racism is not true. Now, the slavery system degenerated even further, because I'm anti-slavery in general, but it degenerated even further to the point that you had slavery transition from religion to race. So then it didn't matter if you were a Christian or not. It only mattered what your skin color looked like. And most of that came out of the business practices of folks who were coming over here trying to take advantage of the resources that were here. And so we have to understand that didn't come into play till we already had settlements that were semi-thriving, should we say. So if we look at history and actually do our research, we understand that America was not founded on racism. That's not true. Okay? But what you're going to hear is this continuing theme of 400 years, 1619, 2019. You're going to keep hearing this theme all year as a pretext to discuss racism. And I think the biggest problem with us black folks, because the Democratic Party has kept us looking at racism. We try to find racism in every little situation. Okay? Now, there are certain racist events. Let me concede to that. There are racist events that happen. Okay? There are racist events that are still happening. That's true. But real racism is rarely called out. And then there's the pretense, the perception of racism that's often called out when there's no racism at all. Let's continue.
And bigotry, and we just got to understand that.
So, Congresswoman Love,
the Attorney General himself called for the governor to resign when the governor's blackface pictures came out.
Yeah, knowing that he had his own.
Which tells you he thought he was going to get away.
Arrogance.
It is arrogant. I agree. And 4 days later, he's admitting it himself, and he's still there.
Contempt and arrogance. Look, there is no daylight on this issue with anyone that we've actually seen that have said these people have to go. I've always presumed, and I will continue.
Again, why do these people have to go? Again, they wore blackface. It was pretty stupid, pretty insensitive. Is it a crime? No. Is it an impeachable offense? No. If you want it to be an impeachable offense, you should probably change the law. That's different. But again, we don't need laws based on your feelings. If every time you got offended, someone had to lose their job, no one would be working based on this logic. If every time somebody did something stupid in their past, then they couldn't hold a position or a job, no one will have a job. We all have committed stupid acts. Some racism, some sexist. Okay? Any ism you think of, we can find an ism for your behavior in the past. That's how hypersensitive this American culture has become. It's ridiculous. Grow up. Grow up. Let's get at real racism. But first you have to find some. Wearing a black face is like the least of our problems. Yes, it might be culturally insensitive. I can admit to that, but it's not that big of a deal. It's not a crime. Let's talk about the abortion clinics in the black neighborhoods, the minority neighborhoods. That's racism. The history of Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger and what she said about black people. Okay? That's racism, but you'll fight for your abortion rights. You'll fight for those racist rights. Because that's where that stems from. That and the hyperfeminism movement. But anyway, I'm ranting. Let's continue.
Continuously say this. You are innocent until you're proven guilty, but can you govern? Can you actually lead the state and start talking about policy issues? Now, remember the first time that we were talking about this governor was on the policy of the abortion issue, the third trimester abortion issue. We've gotten away from even talking about that, and we're going into his contempt for life, his contempt for people of color, and then now we've gone into the lieutenant governor. This is just, which is actually criminal. Accusation.
And but she's right. It got away from the real issue, which was about abortion. And this almost appears like a distraction or a tactic from the late third trimester abortion. Okay, that he was discussing. That was the controversial topic until the blackface came out. Okay? So see how quickly we can get distracted from the real issues. From the real issues. But watch how they skirt over this issue and just power through it. So bastardly.
So they've really got to just wipe everything clean, start all over so that we can govern and
but Jay, I just want to add to what the Congresswoman is saying. This is not just about people of color. I want folks to understand this. This is anti-blackness. So
and what is anti-blackness? And by the way, the definition that she tries to give ad hocly is weird. What is blackness? Please tell me what blackness is. Because unfortunately, black culture is degenerating. It's getting worse. We're not family orientated. We don't stick together. We, in our interest to desegregate, we move amongst other cultures and then lose our family orientation and culture, our will and thirst to help our own people. Look at most of the millionaire actors, basketball players, football players who do very little to support their old communities. They might build something else that gives them prestige and fame for building some sports camp or what have you. Okay, that's great. What about helping with jobs? What about helping with housing? All the things that you expect government to do, you could do through charitable acts. How many of these folks have nonprofit foundations that actually do good and aren't just there for a tax write-off? But these are things that they don't touch. They don't want to touch because those are the real issues. But again, let's centering back on what she said, which we're talking about is attack on blackness. What is that really? Confused me when I heard this the first time, but let's keep going.
Let's make this clear. This is anti-blackness. Blackface in the mid to late 19th century, 1800s, was about mocking black people, our humanity, our beauty, our culture.
Every culture and group of people on the earth mock other people. Black folks mock Hispanics. Of course, now they're trying to integrate them into the minority group and social justice warrior mentality of all brown people are together, whatever that means. But you have a lot of black people that mock Mexicans, Hispanics. You have Hispanics who mock white folks, who mock black folks. You got Hispanics that in certain areas that won't even talk to black folks, don't really want to mix with them at all. So, I mean, you have white folks that make fun of black folks make fun of white folks. You know, we make fun of the Irish, Italians, whatever group. That's normal human behavior. Am I justifying it? Am I saying it's okay and acceptable and correct? No. What I'm saying is it only becomes such a big deal when it has to deal with black people because they want us Okay, and when I say they, I mean people in power want us to believe that all white people are the same. All white people have some hidden racism in them, unless, and I'm generally up until this event, unless they were a Democrat. Then those folks were considered as being for black folks. This is foolishness, but let her continue.
Mean to this country. So this ain't a conversation about people of color. This is a conversation about anti-black racism, white supremacy in the United States of America.
So Governor Ralph Northam came out of hiding and gave an interview to the Washington Post saying that he wants to focus on racial inequality during the rest of the time as governor. Here's what he said, quote, "There are ongoing inequities to access to things like education, healthcare, mortgages, capital, entrepreneurship. I want to heal that pain, and I want to make sure that all Virginians have equal opportunity, and I think I'm the person that can do that for Virginia."
Too little, too late.
No credibility.
I disagree. Not too little, too late. If you feel like he offended the community, why don't you allow him to make amends? That has to do with forgiveness, okay? That has to do with actually wanting things to get better. No, you want to isolate him and you want to assault him verbally as much as you can. Again, I'm no supporter of this guy. I don't even know his full background, but I believe in repentance. My religion teaches repentance. If he truly is sorry and humbled for the things that he did, if he feel like he hurt, quote unquote, black culture, he should be given space to make amends. Does that mean that space to make amends is from the governor's office? Maybe. Well, maybe not. But he hasn't committed an impeachable crime. That's the real issue at hand. If he had done something that was impeachable, then, I would support calls for his resignation. But he just put on some makeup. If every time you do something insensitive, you're supposed to lose your job and position, again, none of us would be working. I think that this is irrational hypersensitivity. And some of us need to rein in our emotions and settle down. We're not children anymore. You can't get offended every time someone says something.
And I'm offended by that. I'm offended. It's
Why?
almost like, let me fix what's going on here. So let me go and focus on something else so that people can stop focusing on the things that I did when I was 25.
Well, and he wants to have his repentance as the governor of Virginia. Look, you resign and you go get your own repentance and you let us continue on in Virginia with actual...
Now listen to this mess. This is the party that talks about not judging people. And here you're saying to him, he's supposed to be one of your own. I'll go get your repentance somewhere else. So what? Where else would he have the vested authority to actually make real amends? If he steps outside of the governor position, he wouldn't have certain abilities, certain capabilities, access to certain resources if he actually did want to make amends. But again, personally, I don't think he has anything to make amends for. It was insensitive. He apologized. He did lie about it at first, which was incredibly stupid as well. Let me say that. I am aware of that. He did lie about it originally, which was incredibly stupid. He would have been more justified and righteous if he would have came out and say, listen, I did something. It was real stupid. It was real insensitive. The question is, will you guys forgive me or not? I want to continue my term. Okay. But again, we're so busy catering to people's emotional dispositions that we can't even get at the truth. That's probably why he lied in the first place. It still was stupid. Let's continue.
Governance by people who legitimately ought to be in the office.
Well, let me ask you a question, Congresswoman, as the elected Democrat at the table. If all three of them resign, then I believe the Republican Speaker of the House of Delegates becomes governor. You don't want that.
No, but we need to think about doing what's right and what's right for Virginians and what's right overall. I mean, look at the race issue in today's day and age with the president at the helm, who has been one of the most divisive presidents and, frankly, racist himself, is a conversation we do need to have. But looking at just the line of order and saying, no, we're not going to do that because of the consequences, it's not the right way to do this. And so, for me, I do think we need to have this conversation, and we should continue to have this conversation. but it has to be front and center, and we can't forget about the person who is dividing us and who himself is injecting this into the country to live up again and coming out again. And we haven't seen it be this bad in recent time till the president has really made this a race issue, whether it's about African Americans. Certainly he's doing it all over the board with immigrants, but we need to have this conversation.
We're Americans.
Well, I just can't. 1984, 1980, Gucci just a few days ago. This is not about President Donald Trump. This is about...
Let me stop. She's right. It's not about President Donald Trump. And up until this point in the video, I staunchly disagree with most of what she had to say, except for being black 365 days a year. But at this point in the video, she makes some very poignant points that I agree with. Not all of it, but listen carefully to what she's saying. It's not about Trump. It was never about Trump. But every little single thing that goes wrong on a national level, that goes to the national news and that gains national attention, it means let's blame Trump. Let's blame Donald Trump for it. And again, I am not a fan of the president, and I'm not saying that just as a disclaimer or to make you feel better about me. I didn't like either one of the people running for president. I'm sorry. You don't have to like that. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to ask me who I voted for. That's not your concern. The point is, I didn't like either one of the people who were the mainline candidates, and I don't have to like them. That's the beautiful thing about being an American. I can choose that I don't like these folks and vote for whoever I want to.
Racism in the United States of America. Congresswoman, I hear you, but on this, we're not blaming President Trump.
I'm saying that he has divided this country.
No, let me just say this.
We're not blaming Donald Trump.
I am not going to continue to let politicians use this man as the excuse to deal with racism in this country. It's been going on for far too long in the United States of America. We need some...
And again, let me say, there is some racism in this country. That's true. The problem is we try to find racism in every nook, every cranny, under every pillow, under every blanket. We have to be careful not to lean towards this leftist philosophy and theology. It's almost like a religion to find racism somewhere. People find racism everywhere, even when it's not there at all.
Real truth and reconciliation. Yes, President Donald Trump is a racist. There is no doubt about it. But as we have seen,
really prove
Democrats
that,
delve in racism as well. We got to stop making this about who's a Republican, who's a Democrat. I want to know who's a humanitarian. I want to know who's going to stand up for people's lives, starting with black lives, because when you take care of black lives, everybody's life is taken care of.
Let me stop her right there. You start with black lives, everybody's lives are taken care of. What? Huh? How did you come to that conclusion? What school of mathematics you went to develop that equation? No, the real solution to our problem is allow people to take care of themselves, get the government out of our lives, decrease the government. It's too large, it's inflated. Have sound monetary policies. Stop stealing from us, claiming you're going to save for our retirement. Help us get real information about healthcare. Stop allowing poisonous drugs to be on the market. Those sort of things, those sort of things that can make life better. I could give you a laundry list, but those are just some of the main examples. If we focus on that, everyone's lives will be better, including black people. I don't understand how making black people feel comfortable and not feel like people are constantly making fun of them or whatever, because again, this is about sensitivity, how that would make everyone's lives better. Okay? Again, I just want to say this again. This is an issue about being sensitive, being real sensitive about what is known as blackface. Was anybody actually physically harmed? See, that's my position when we're talking about right and wrong. Feelings are different. Was someone physically harmed or was their property damaged as well? That's the issue. That's the constitutional perspective. Okay, you have the right to do whatever you want unless you actually harm someone or you damage their property. And then you either committed a criminal crime or a civil crime. Okay, in which case, proper channels should be taken to get justice. Blackface is not an actual crime. Is it insensitive? Yes. But we need to be less sensitive to things like this. Not everyone is going to appeal to you emotionally. And so when someone says a word that you don't like, you're going to get offended. That's why this channel is called the Unapologetic Chauvinist. It's a play on words because people think of a male chauvinist, but a chauvinist is actually a patriot in its sense. Someone loyal to their country. And though there have been many problems in the United States of America, I can't think of a place in my study of history where I would want to be as a black person. If you want to understand, if I identify with that label. But I really take on and say, I'm an American. This is the only place I know. But let's continue.
One's life is taken care of. So no more about this. These three men, it had nothing to do with President Trump. What Lieutenant Governor Fairfax is going through don't have nothing to do with President Trump.
Nothing to do with President
Northam
Trump.
wearing blackface don't have nothing to do with Donald Trump. Harrington wearing blackface has nothing to do with Donald Trump. This is about racism in the DNA of this country.
I don't know about racism in the DNA.
We are traumatized, Jake, and we are sick of it.
You know,
politicians need to stop playing games.
And the liberal parties keep us traumatized. That's the problem.
For your own actions and the things that you've done. When he was 25.
But honestly, I think that's enough of that. I'm going to end this video here. Let me say this about black people being traumatized. We're traumatized because these things are constantly thrown in our face. Again, we're taught to try to find racism under every rock, in every nook, every cranny, and that's why we're traumatized. At what point do we stop trying to find racism in everything and get on with our lives and try to better our people internally? If you feel like your group of people is separate from the other group of people here. So when are black people going to actually get together? Stop trying to reach out for the white man to hug him. No disrespect. But that's what it is. You want white people to embrace you, and they don't have to. Just the same way we don't have to embrace white people. What we should be doing, if you feel like that racism is the problem, then you should separate to the degree where you can uplift you and your community, do for your community. But what happens with most black people, you get a little money and you go move in their community and then you want them to accept you. Why? Why didn't you try to build up your own community while you were there? Most of us don't do that. There are some people that do that. So I'm not saying that there isn't anyone who does that, but most of us don't do that. We get a little money and we leave. And it only makes sense because if you look at your community and you see that it's in chaos and you don't want to be in chaos and you don't feel like you can change it, you leave. That's what happens. But anyway, let's stop being so sensitive. And let's stop calling for people to be impeached before we can prove they actually committed a crime, two of which I don't think committed a crime. And the lieutenant governor, until there's actual evidence that this man sexually assaulted these women, I'm not inclined to believe that. Anyway, let's stop being hypersensitive and let's be honest and truthful. My issue is always truth and morality. God bless and good day.